A sea otter. Possibly one of the cutest marine animals to call the North Pacific coast home, and it may or may not be my own spirit animal. Sorry, what is this script? There we go, that's the one. We're here to talk about the other sea otter today, the Sea Otter Classic, one of the biggest biking festivals to take place in North America every year since its inception 33 years ago. I mean, that's nearly as old as I am. If you aren't familiar with the Sea Otter Classic, well, it is much different than a European biking trade show or a World Cup racing weekend, even Crankworx Bike Festival, because it encompasses all of the biking disciplines, including road cycling, enduro, downhill, dual slalom, cross country, trials, and more. Now, I always say biking is for everyone. And when you walk or ride into the Laguna Seca Raceway, you're gonna see exactly that. In today's video, I'm gonna take you on a little trip down memory lane to learn more about what Sea Otter is now compared to how it started, and also what role it plays for all of the biking industry. Now, the Sea Otter Classic is a unique event in that it brings together many, if not all sides of the biking industry in one place at one time. Now, in my opinion, this is what really separates this event from other biking festivals. You get the crowds and consumers coming to see the latest and greatest products, or just peculiar one-offs, as well as spectating the events taking place. You get the brands that are eager to engage with their audiences and build those relationships. But they often use this opportunity to launch new products or give a sneak peek at things to come. Anything from top-tier bike brands to lesser-known niche companies show up to take their stab at sticking out in the sea of hundreds of vendors in the expo area. And then you've got the athletes. With so much variety in racing and disciplines available, it's not uncommon for athletes to take part in more than just one event over the long weekend. Hell, even a few years ago, Tom Bradshaw tried to race 5 different races on one bike, and that included the enduro, the downhill, the dual slalom, the cross country, and an e-bike race. Needless to say, he didn't perform too well in that e-bike race, but valiant effort, Tom.
Till the start of our e-mountain bike race.
Wait, what?
And if they aren't there to race, then they are certainly present to make face with the brands that support them, or possibly make connections with new brands in hopes of securing sponsorship in the future. Basically, there's a lot of wheeling and dealing that goes on at the Sea Otter Classic, aside from the actual racing taking place. And then, because everybody wants a piece of this delicious bike pie, Sea Otter wouldn't be complete without the media teams that roll in from all parts of the globe. It's almost like an event within an event. There's the racing, the festival grounds, and to top it off, camping on site. I mean, where else in the world can you camp at the literal start gate to the downhill course? While Sea Otter is not the biggest trade show or the most prestigious racing, it is an event that tries to offer something for everyone. From practice in the morning to walking the festival grounds all afternoon and even partaking in those fire pit jumps in the campground. But how did this all come about? Well, the co-founders, Frank Yohannan and Lou Rudolph, were inspired to create a mountain bike race, and it finally happened in early April of 1991. But back then, it was called the Laguna Seca Challenge. Now, that first event saw 350 athletes and 150 spectators head to the hills of Monterey, California. Sea Otter has seen its participation expand, with athlete attendances being over 9,000 strong and around 74,000 spectators. I mean, that's literally more than the population of Santa Cruz, California. As Sea Otter takes place in early April each year, it's usually one of the first events that athletes can compete at and see how their off-season training's been going while lining up against amateur and professional racers. Riders come from all over the world to compete in the many disciplines that Sea Otter caters to. But why is this? I mean, the downhill venue, for instance, clearly isn't a World Cup level course with the lack of elevation on hand. So what is it? I mean, in the past, we've seen some seriously heavy-hitting names and Olympic athletes take to these tracks, so something must be up to draw this crowd. I reached out to a pal of mine, Adam Craig, who's been a Sea Otter athlete since the late 90s, and this was his perspective. Adam recalls going to his first Sea Otter event back in 1999 with the RockShox development team. Back then, when there wasn't social media to keep up on the latest racing, that those result sheets were gospel. And this was the place to be if you wanted to develop as a racer, as there was tough competition and literally everyone from the industry was there. Adam said his most vivid racing memory at Sea Otter was from the short track cross country course the year of the Mud Fest in 2006. He was riding on some Michelin Wild Gripper mud tires and he rode just aggressively enough to take that win that year. He eventually landed a job racing for giant bicycles and attributes his early days at Sea Otter for gaining that opportunity. Right, that was back then. So what does Cody Kelly have to say, who's an elite racer of the current time, and he's ridden for some of the biggest brands in the world. Not to mention, he is one of the most stylish riders on a bike ever. Well, Cody reckons the dual slalom track is reason enough to head back to Sea Otter again and again, as it's one of the best slalom tracks in the world with one of the highest level pro turnouts. And he's won that event twice now. Annika Beerten is another athlete that recalls her first big result at Sea Otter in dual slalom, beating out top rider at the time, Lee Donovan. Annika reckons that result helped to land her first Specialized contract 20 years ago. I've seen it all up there on the hillside of the dual slalom track from some of the world's best riders, including Mitch Ropalato, Jill Kentner, the queen of slalom, even Kurt Voorhees on his recumbent bike. But we can't forget the super exciting adaptive cycling category as well. As for the downhill track, perhaps not the most grueling track out there, it is often the first time we get to see riders on their new season bikes or perhaps a new team if they've changed in the off season. To add some weight to the racing, the podium features many of the best athletes to ever compete. Whether that's Menard, Gwynn, the Atherton, Graves, whoever. If you've seen them atop at a World Cup, they've probably given this course a go at some point. If you consider yourself a biking connoisseur, then you'll likely enjoy wandering the pits, not to mention the freebies that tents give away, like hats, products, shoes, even complete bikes. I can actually recall my first own experience at Sea Otter in 2013. My pal Lisa and I road tripped down from Whistler as she was seeking sponsorships for what is now the women's freeride movement, and I was kind of trying to make a name for myself with racing, because back then, that's the only way you could gain recognition. I ended up winning the amateur downhill division on my Santa Cruz Blur, and I think that's a really good testament to what the downhill track actually is. It's a short enduro stage at 1.6 kilometers in distance with an elevation drop of 156 meters, not to mention a grueling 8-meter climb. All fun stuff, nonetheless, but one of my favorite memories from back then was camping in the fields with the other dirtbag bikers like myself. We all had the same agenda, which was to have the most amount of fun all weekend and never leave the venue, which honestly was quite easy to achieve, but I do wish there was a swimming hole up there because it gets hot. Now, another huge draw for consumers to visit Sea Otter is the opportunity to try loads of bikes. Many brands bring demo fleets, and they seem genuinely stoked to set people up for a good old test ride. Something that many people don't consider when they're walking the aisles of these trade shows is that it costs a lot of money to set a tent up there. Like, a lot of money. So why do they do it? Why do brands come? What do they hope to gain by attending an event like Sea Otter, for example? To answer this question, I reached out to Brian Park, the director of mountain biking here at Outside, because fun fact, he was actually the content marketing manager at Rocky Mountain Bicycles before. He mentioned how international brands come to Sea Otter because they're trying to gain a foothold in the USA market, and USA brands go to kick off the North American bike season. Having access to tens of thousands of consumers, not to mention the distributors, the shops, the media, etc., it is extremely valuable, especially in that California market. Many brands believe that you can't win in the USA without winning that California market. This year, Pinkbike is headed back to the warm and sunburn-inducing raceway to be part of the Sea Otter Classic yet again. Keep your eyes peeled on the homepage in the next coming days for fresh articles and videos from the Expo Center and racetracks. Oh, you're still here. Perfect. Now that I've talked about Sea Otter, I want to share you in on a little bit of Pinkbike bonus history. Possibly the best article I stumbled on when digging for Sea Otter Gold was the video where young Dario DiGiulio current Pinkbike editor, but was not at the time of the video, raced to win a bike from the Pinkbike booth. The only caveat was that he had to hustle the parts for the bike from brands that were present in the expo area only. Spoiler alert, Dario did get all the parts together and he did win the bike. And he actually ran into Mike Casimir at Crankworks a few years later, got offered a job here at Pinkbike. How lucky are we? Hope you enjoyed the video today, looking back on the memory lane, and if you don't already, subscribe to the channel.